everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this special episode of Real Talk with Karen Weaver. As we promised, we talked about education about 3 weeks ago, and we said we had to continue this conversation. And so here we are. We're back, and I'm really happy to have our Dr. Michael Rice, our Michigan State Superintendent. Superintendent of schools for the state of Michigan. Dr. Rice, good evening. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's funny because we talked a little while ago. We started, scheduling this a little while ago. And when we scheduled it, we were talking about the dismantling of the education department and what that meant. And you had just put a statement out on DEI. And it seems like since we had that conversation, so many things have taken place since then. I mean, it's been one thing after another. You've been busy, is what I said. You should be tired.
We have been busy. There's no time for tired.
Uh-huh. Well, good. We're glad you're not. We're glad you're not, because I mean, you have been standing firm. And so with where we are today, I mean, what do you want to start with?
Well, a lawsuit today.
That's right.
Lawsuit against the Trump administration. 20 states, including Michigan and the District of Columbia, sued the Trump administration over cuts to the U.S. Department of Education, cuts that would equal basically half the U.S. Department of Education, cutting the U.S. Department of Education from roughly 4,000 people to roughly 2,000 people in the space of a month.
And I mean, that's a huge cut, and it makes me think, I know we saw somebody standing on stage with a chainsaw talking about these cuts that were going to take place, but something like that. I mean, you said it's 20 states plus the District of Columbia that are in this. Well, thank you. Maybe we should start by saying thank you, really, for your service, because
and shout out to the Attorney General, General Nessel, who is leading with her staff many of these terrific legal efforts.
So walk us through this, because that's a lot of staff to lose like that. Like that. What does that mean? Because when we think about the dismantling, we know that students are going to be hurt. Students are going to be hurt by this. We know that this is going to include students with special needs, students from low-income households. Talk to us about what this does, how this cripples and damages our community, our education system.
So the U.S. Department of Education is a small federal cabinet department. It's not one of the larger departments at all. It's quite small federally. That's number one. Number two, you're losing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of experience of federal employees. We do not know precisely how the cut will manifest itself. And so we don't know if it'll be an across-the-board cut of an equal percentage in different offices, or if more likely some offices will be eliminated and other offices will be relatively spared. We're not going to know that for a few weeks. But what we've done is we've sued to say, hey, this is prelude to adverse impacts to programs, protections, and children themselves.
Right.
And there's no question but that you do not cut a federal Department of Education in half in order to share the same amount of money federally with local school districts. That's not a thing. This is prelude to cutting not simply programs and protections, but funding as well.
So because this shouldn't be able to happen without, I thought you needed, congressional. I thought Congress had to do this.
Without a doubt. We feel the same way. We feel exactly the same way. There's no question but that if you are talking about trimming around the edges, that a president has some measure of executive authority. But to cut so profoundly is to chip away at what that department is constituted to do by the legislature, federal legislature being the Congress, to your point. And to chip away at that, to undermine that, to ultimately ignore that, is to fly in the face of the Constitution. Uh, he wanted to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. He recognized that that required a vote of Congress. He knew he could not get 60 votes in the Senate to invoke cloture, shut down debate, and get to a straight up or down vote. So he, for all intents and purposes, did what he could to try to undermine the U.S. Department of Education without formally closing it, because he couldn't get the closure vote. He couldn't get the cloture vote, therefore the closure vote in Congress. So this is what he thought was the best possible avenue. We think it's illegal, and we've gone into court over it.
And so, I mean, usually when you go into court, how long a process will this be before we know something?
We'll know relatively quickly whether they believe that there should be a temporary restraining order or an injunction. How long it will take to decide the full merits of the case is a question. But if we are successful early, it's a harbinger for likely success down the line. If we are unsuccessful initially, it is a harbinger of just the contrary.
Yeah, I was going to say that will be very scary. That will be very scary because, I mean, what this could mean. So when we hear these things, what can we do? Because sometimes it's like we're just sitting and we're waiting to see what happens next. What can we be doing, people in the community, to help with this? Or is there anything that we can do?
I would lean on elected officials, particularly in state legislatures, state legislatures, and Congress.
Okay.
So wherever I was, whether I was in Nebraska or New Mexico, whether I was in Michigan or Maine, North Carolina or New Jersey, I'd be writing my my Congress person. I'd be writing my state legislature, and I'd be sharing with my state legislature, hey, you're an elected official and you have the access to people in important positions the way I don't. What are you doing to advocate that this is wrong? You know, recently, a few weeks ago, there was a to-do about cuts in USAID. And there were cheers from many across the country. And those cheers lasted for about 48 hours until people in the heartland, you know, the Midwest and the Great Plains states realized that the food that they were raising in Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa and a lot of great places across the country, much of that food wasn't staying in the United States. It was being shipped abroad to help feed the world's population. And that when you cut USAID, what were you doing? Well, you were cutting your own, you know, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. This was not helping you in your home community, in your home state. And a number of people all of a sudden got a different perspective about this small agency about which many of us didn't know about an enormous amount. It's exactly right. But, you know, you had people from rural jurisdictions saying, look, I think this is good diplomacy. It's good diplomacy. You know, you've got food being shipped across the world to hungry people. It's got an American flag on it, and it says we care about you. It's good for us economically. It's good for them from the perspective of health safety, wellness, nutrition, it's a win-win. It's gentle diplomacy. It's not heavy
Right.
diplomacy. It's not pick up arms diplomacy. It's not military on the ground diplomacy. It's gentle diplomacy. We care about you, and we want you to be able to have food, have sustenance, have fluid, be able to try to make something of your lives,
And it was humanitarian as well.
without a doubt,
That
without a doubt. And
humanitarian, and that seems to be missing right now, the humanitarian aspect of what is happening.
well, I think so much of government is complicated,
Yes.
and I raised the example because a lot of people felt, well, that's over there. It's not here. We need to think about ourselves first.
Mhm.
Well, come to find out that we're interrelated, and that the food for somebody else is prepared by us, and not always, but
Right.
in many cases. And so it really is thinking about
Food
ourselves
on
as
our
we think about
table.
them.
Right.
Hmm.
These are jobs that puts food on our table
That's
as
right.
we help others. So there's this reciprocal thing that takes place when you do these kinds of things.
Hmm.
And I hate seeing, that taken away. What is your greatest fear with what is going on right now?
I'm concerned about a couple of things. I'm
Okay.
concerned, number one, that terrific educators could
Mhm.
lose their jobs. Could lose their jobs because of cuts in federal funding, either directly because of federal education funding or indirectly because the feds fund less money collectively to the states and local jurisdictions, and it has an adverse impact on education. So I'm concerned about the number of educators that we might have and support staff that we might have in the short and midterm. I'm also concerned about concerns of educators that young people or not so young people in education who know that it's right to broaden the literary canon, who know that it's right to teach more broadly history, to teach comprehensive history and not narrow history, to teach it all, that there will be people who get skittish
Mhm.
and say, well, if I teach Baldwin, maybe that falls under diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
James Baldwin is a Black author, but first and foremost, he's an author.
He's an author.
I mean, to be clear, he's a brilliant author. And if you read "Go Tell It on the Mountain" or "Blues for Mr. Charlie," or you realize that from jump, nobody's trying to push out William Shakespeare or William Faulkner or J.D. Salinger or Ernest Hemingway from the canon. But certainly we can find room for Baldwin and Margaret Walker and Alice Walker and Nikki Giovanni
Right.
and Gwendolyn Brooks and surely there's room on the shelves for a breadth of authors.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. Surely there is, and there should be. What do you think, though? And as this is going on, for those, I think about students that are in college and universities, going to school for education. And what does this say to them? I mean, are they saying, wow, did I pick the wrong thing? We're getting rid of half of the staff already.
So it's a moment,
Hmm.
but it's only a moment. Let's not jump to the conclusion that it is going to be a sea change.
Okay.
Because if you take, for example, the Dear Colleague letter from February 14th, it was written by the acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights in the U.S. Department of Education. February 14th, Dear Colleague letter, and it basically said diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are discriminatory. Little three and a half page missive out to local school districts. And we wrote our school districts and we said, look, it is true that there are some programs that could discriminate, but those are zero sum programs. Positive sum programs do not preference, and by extension are not discriminatory. Now, what do I mean by that? So take the literary canon, for example. Nobody is discriminating against William Shakespeare by reading James Baldwin.
Right.
No one is discriminating against the Boston Tea Party by teaching about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. When we do grow your own programs and cast a wide net and look to recruit people from all support staff walks of life and from all student bodies, Benton Harbor and St. Joe, Flint and Flushing, Lansing and Okemos, Detroit and Grosse Pointe, Muskegon Heights and Mona Shores. When we cast a wide net and there is no zero sum, that's not preferential. And by extension, it's not discriminatory. And in the follow-up to the the February 14th Dear Colleague letter, the U.S. Department of Education put out a 9-page FAQ to explain its previous 3-page guidance document. And it acknowledged that the guidance to which it was referring was related to zero-sum programs. So take elite admissions in college education. That's zero-sum. I get in, you don't. You get in, I don't. But much of what we're talking about isn't zero-sum at all. It's positive sum. Right. It's people benefit from a broader whole. And those are not preferential. They're not discriminatory. And in the FAQ from 2 weeks later, so it was a February 28th, March 1 FAQ, that FAQ makes really clear that things like Black History Month, Chinese New Year celebration, Holocaust Remembrance Day celebrations, things that people were getting skittish about 2 weeks earlier. They said, those are permissible. Absolutely, they're permissible. But you cast a shadow over them, and you did it deliberately. You did it knowingly, trying to spook people. And there were universities in this state that got skittish about some of these really beautiful celebrations of life and humanity, for no other reason than that they thought that they were putting in jeopardy federal dollars.
It's been a scare tactic and bullying for sure. It really has, and people don't know what to do. But I do appreciate you saying what we can do. And I want to just repeat that if some people have just tuned in. You said use those people that are in place to be your voice. Those elected officials, lean on the state legislature, go to your congressperson, let them know how you feel and what you want to have happen. Let them know.
And let them know that you're not talking about everybody has a favorite crazy example under a particular banner. But you and I know, Mayor, there are millions of things under these banners of diversity, of inclusion, of equity, minimally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And so everything that falls under this banner is not actionable, it's not discriminatory. In fact, most of these things aren't at all. If they are positive sum, they're not preferential, they're not discriminatory. If they're zero sum, that may be a different story.
Right.
Maybe a different story.
I was listening to Alicia Keys not too long ago, and the comment she made was DEI isn't a threat, it's a gift. And that's what we need to keep in mind. This is a gift because we need diversity. We grow from diversity. We grow from other experiences and seeing things that other people, how they live. And It's a gift. So I want to say thank you because you have been in that fight for us. And we do. You need to know that you're appreciated
Thank you.
for standing up and speaking out and, not giving in and not being scared because it can be a scary place to be when you stand for what's right. So we appreciate you doing that for us.
Thank you
And,
kindly, Mayor. I
and
appreciate that.
yeah, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you.
Well, I want you to treat my board president well now when you get her on the show.
Oh, you know what? She'll be just fine. She'll be just fine. And before she comes on, I just want to remind people we are getting ready to switch. Dr. Rice has to leave, and we thank him for his time. Dr. Pamela Pugh, the president of the State Board of Education, will be joining us. And while we make that switch, I just want to tell people that March is reading month. It is reading month. Take some kids to the library. Get them a library membership. I mean, read to somebody. I just went to a school 2 days ago and read to a third grade classroom and had a great time. So let's remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. You
Okay.
take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye. Okay. Hi, Dr. Pugh.
Hi, how are you? I enjoyed that conversation.
Oh, good. You were listening.
I was listening. I was behind the scenes listening.
It's and you know what? It's funny because you were here, what was it, 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
Something like that. I just can't believe everything that has taken place in those last
I
3 weeks.
can't.
It's changed the
can't keep up.
conversation some.
Yes, yes, yes. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we're educating our children. So
Mhm.
hats off to all of the educators, Dr.
Right.
Rice and others who are continuing to educate our children while those who are supposed to be leading our country are trying to throw us off. You all said just distraction tactic at one after the other. And so, but kudos to our educators and for continuing to put our children first while others are just choosing politics and political games and whatever else over the lives and future of our children.
Well, we know firsthand about that. A lot of things are put over. I'm going to say the health because that's health and
Mhm.
well-being to
It
me.
is. It
And
is.
and we know what happens when you put politics, profit, whatever your personal gain is over
Right.
the health and well-being of people
Right.
and the
You are
fallout that comes from.
absolutely. You remind me yesterday, it was yesterday that the administration was also touting that they had the best day ever because they were rolling back regulations, the regulations that were supposed to be protecting communities like Flint. And so we're going even further backwards. We are in trouble. Um, but we have some good people who are fighting. You just heard one of them. You are one. And we know that there are those in the listening audience. And so we are not defeated. We will use every tool that we can. We will act swiftly and we will continue to work together to do that.
Well, we can't stop now.
Can't stop now.
Stop now. And let me know about if you have any comments that we want to look at as well. That's what I was going to say. But no, we can't stop now. It was funny because this is a little different question, but I wanted to ask. I said I'd wait for you to come on because of your public health background. Because one of the things we also see that's impacting while all of this is going on, we still have health issues.
Exactly.
And when you look at what's going on as far as what they're doing with the public health piece,
Right.
and you see, wow, they're having measles outbreaks in Texas, and how this has an impact on our schools.
It does. We saw it during the pandemic. The issue, one of the greatest issues with the pandemic is that we were not poised to respond. We were not poised. We knew that there was going to be the potential for for a virus that we were not prepared, that we didn't have the immunization for. But what we should have had is a response team, a response to it. And so the first Trump administration was already cutting in those areas. It wasn't our first pandemic, but it was one that lasted for a long time because we didn't have the wherewithal to address it. So here we are again, and we're even farther behind because now we're dealing with um, illnesses and diseases that we've seen and had addressed decades ago that we're now seeing to spread, and
Right.
we're cutting staff at the same time.
That's what I was going to say. And so, and cutting staff at the same time.
Cutting staff, cutting the mechanisms to communicate what's going on. So not only are we, and I'm going to stop saying we, not only is Trump and his administration not studying, not assessing what's are imminent dangers, but they're also not prepared and don't have the staffing to address it.
So let me see. I had something that I wanted to read.
Okay.
And okay, I think here it is.
And there
Because,
is something I want to share too before we leave that came up in our last conversation.
oh, what's that? Go ahead while I get this.
Someone brought up cursive writing, and I want you to know
I brought
it
it.
was you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it just so happened that I ran into Representative Carter, who had presented previous cursive writing bills. Dr. Rice and I have been talking about the priority of cursive writing and how it fits into children being able to read as
Mhm.
well as comprehend,
Right.
and as well as other important factors, being able to read old documents, being able to sign their name. So
Right.
this month, just 2 days ago, Tuesday, we, as the State Board of Education, passed a cursive writing resolution, and we're going to be working with Representative Carter to make sure she puts that bill back on the docket. So I will keep you
Thank
posted on that.
because
We also brought forward my colleague Mich, Dr. Mich Robinson brought forward music, which you would be happy to hear about because Michigan
here
is one
I
of the
am.
few states that does not have music in elementary schools. So prioritizing music and that our children are not just
Thank you.
going and being test taking, that those are not just spaces for test taking, but we're really enriching our children. I saw someone put a question in about special education, and I was hoping that he didn't see the question, but prioritizing, really focusing in on special education and making sure that we're looking in the cracks, crevices, hearing from parents, and that we're addressing our special education system
Mm.
in particular. So just wanted to give those updates.
So, and that good because I was very interested in that, and I'm really glad to hear about the music as well because
Mhm. I knew you would
it's so
be.
much easier for kids to learn things at a young age.
Mhm.
If I wait until I'm in middle school,
Right.
everybody else that had access to,
Mhm.
music is so far ahead of me. I might as well stop
Yes.
and I don't
Mhm.
want to say that, but I'm at a disadvantage. I was looking at something and we were talking about DEI.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is what one of your board members said.
Oh
This
boy.
was, this was,
Hopefully it was one of the good ones.
oh, no, it wasn't. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't like what they said. Okay, this is Nikki Snyder, state board member, told Bridge the values of diversity, equity, inclusion efforts are important, but she takes issue when students are taught superiority as a racial quality rather than a human quality. She said that she is concerned DEI has turned into a political vehicle of propaganda, and the money could be better spent teaching students how to read.
Right. Some people just don't get it. They don't connect dots. Some ain't connecting up there to connect that. Because what we know, and you know this,
Mhm.
your background in particular, and I'm gonna say it, you could say it better than I could. that we have to make sure that our children have environments that are conducive to learning.
Right.
We know that children seeing books about themselves, I know myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because we've evolved in our age, and we're not like the kids today where they're able to see more about themselves. But just remember those first TV shows,
Right.
those first radio stations where we were able to hear and see and read from people that look like us. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine that. And we know that it's in order for us to address our reading rates. We know that we have to make sure that we're putting materials in front of our children. We know that diversity helps everybody. It's not just us, but it helps. It's what this country is built on. Diversity builds innovation. And then when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we can't even use the word DEI anymore because it's some bad connotation to mean
It's
two
taken.
women, two Black women with a doctorate degree who has, you know, myself, the bills to show it,
Mm-hmm.
um, as well as smart. And but we weren't deserving of the space that we're in. However, um, you know, and so that term is being used to describe people of color, LGBTQ people, women who are undeserving of their space. And unfortunately, DEI has not benefited us in the same way that it has benefited others. And what this really is about is people trying to take and trying not to grasp what diversity, equity, and inclusion really is about.
Well, they've
And
made the definition their own now, and
this is
and
true.
using it to brainwash people to
Yes.
believe this is what it means,
Yeah.
and we have to
But
speak up and be vocal
and,
about.
and I will say that my board members, the majority of my board, we shut them down on
Yes, you do.
Tuesday, and we were able to put forward a very strong resolution. I'm very proud of my board members and how we have stood and spoken out, because we have universities, we have others, and you
Right.
know the thing, what we're hearing is people say, lay down, just
Mm.
take it for 4 years. But I thank my board members for understanding that that's not an option,
No,
especially for
no.
our children. It's not an option.
If we lay down and take it for 4 years, I mean, we won't be able to get back up.
We
They
won't.
will run us over backward and forward. So no, we're not going to lay down. We're not going to take it. We've gotten our rest, and
Mhm.
we're fighting.
That's
You know,
right.
that's why we rested, because we were getting ready for the next round.
Yes.
So that's what they need to know. We got ready
Mhm.
for the next round. We had to rejuvenate
That's
and
right.
get ready, because this is
And you were saying it earlier, the only the what this administration and Trump is banking on, just their whole makeup, what they're banking on is being able to get away with what they can get away with. And we're going to push back. And you know, if we can fight over here, we're going to fight right here too for these
we're gonna
children.
meet you where we are,
Yes.
where you are. Meet
Yes.
you where you are, and fight.
Yes.
And that's what they're hoping doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um
Wow. I was just looking at that picture
I love that picture.
Landon had put up. Can you put that back up, Landon?
I was reading it.
Yeah, and I was trying to see where was that? Look at that. Okay. Educate. Yeah, it does save lives. Stop Musk.
I put out we put out a press release
Okay.
on Tuesday, and I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but
Did I?
I one of the things that we've talked about is the fact that we would have to go, I would go with you to the White House. We
Mm-hmm.
would have to meet with the Trump administration, and we would come back with stuff for Flint, you know. And then the time when we met with Musk after he gave some,
Water
yeah,
filtration system.
yeah, the water filtration system, he gave the students
Computers.
tablets, and
Right.
yes. And where are those people?
I said, what
Where
person that came to Flint and said, what do you need?
not that we're fully surprised, but still,
But this is just, I said, okay, well, people let you know who they are at some point. They get comfortable.
yes.
Yes. Oh, so okay, put it up. He's gonna put a picture up in just a few minutes. I can't.
Picture you want, but it's the picture that. Yeah, here we go.
Okay, well, let's see what.
Oh yeah, I have that. I think I took that picture.
Yep. But I mean, isn't that something?
His whole face looks different though.
Yep. And it was
Whole
interesting
countenance.
because he said, "What is it that you all need?" And we told him.
Yeah.
And we got it.
We talked over some months,
Mm-hmm.
at least months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's funny because even when having to go to the White House and deal with the Trump administration, they're like, it's like a new beast now.
It is.
It's like they're on. I mean, and it wasn't fun to deal with them then,
No.
but now it's just like they are on. I'm looking at Tanya Burns. Tanya, you know what? She's busy. She is busy. Hello, Councilwoman.
And you'll have our bail money, right?
Oh man, but we're glad to have her doing what she's doing here in the city of Flint. I tell you. And so I'm a thank her for her service as well, because we need people that aren't scared. We need fighters
at everywhere, at every table. At every table.
Yeah. So what's going to happen next? I mean, I'm almost scared to ask. What do you see?
No. And I have not even
lawsuit goes.
Say that one more time.
Or does it kind of depend on how this lawsuit goes?
Well, yes. And when Dr. Rice called me and said, "Hey Pam, this is what Dana Nessel has done. We've joined with the 20 states." And so I was like, "Okay, so is the building open today?" Because they cut the staff. So let me say this. On Tuesday, we wrote that resolution, which was a very bold statement. If you go to any of some of the mean-spirited Republicans pages, they're saying not nice things and making things up. But we wrote that resolution, and it was just a few hours later that we're getting back and we're hearing that half the department was gone. First of all, the fact that it's like the smallest department is a problem. And our children, when it comes to paying teachers, when it comes to having the number of staff, even at the U.S. Department of Ed, it's one of the smaller departments. They cut half the department, told the people don't come back yesterday. So today they came, they should have gone back, but who knows what they went back to today.
Right.
I've not had a chance to look at the news. I asked Dr. Rice earlier, he wasn't sure what happened. We just don't know. So we don't even know if they were done when they did the half of the staff. We will have to see where they made the cuts, because there were talks all over the place. We don't know how it will, but we do know that most of the resources that come from our federal government, from the U.S. Department of Education, help our special education children, our special needs, children who are vulnerable in rural areas, as well as in Flint, Michigan, and Saginaw, where I'm sitting now. So we don't know.
And when these kinds of cuts happen, I mean, you think about it. I said that's going to make it difficult for even people that are getting financial aid, processing those things, people that are getting those federal grant loans or work study programs. It's going to impact all
it
that.
is. You are so right. And you talked to Dr. Rice. That's not your first time. I think it was like one of Dr. Rice's first day. He came. I remember I was working for the city, and he came to City Hall. And for the most part, we align on issues, and we should know that we are blessed here in Michigan. our state board of education, there's 8 board members. We are elected by constituents across the state of Michigan. You were there. We get endorsed from a party, and then we're elected statewide. And then we hire the state superintendent of public instruction. And for the most part, we work with our Republicans from time to time on some issues, but for the most part, we've been able to be stable. And imagine if we didn't have the state superintendent that we have, who's standing firm, like
Right.
in this time, let alone not doing some of the mischievous things that some of the other superintendents have done. But would you know that right now that we have a legislature that's trying to overturn our Constitution and make it so that the state superintendent is appointed by the governor, that the Board of Education is configured some other way. So there are those who have continued to push for the Constitution to change and have greater control over the state superintendent of public education.
Yeah.
And so
Glad you
we're
brought that
definitely,
up because I did see that.
and so while all of these other things that are going on, we have to be so focused on so many different
Right.
issues because they're coming in at us from different angles. We had our state house that looked to cut billions of dollars from our budget. We've had just recently, we've had and not only in Washington D.C. taking away the food from our children. Those board members that you were quoting, you could also go back and find them quoted saying that our children don't need universal lunches and breakfast in schools. They get it however they get it.
Well, I
But
wasn't surprised by that when I read what that
yeah,
particular member said at all. I want to, Landon, I want to, Tanya Burns had put something up about the Trump administration, and then Jerome has something that I wanted, if you could. What did Tanya say? We have to stick together
Mhm.
and move more boldly than the Trump administration if we're going to see results. Yeah, we sure do. And we've got to be just as bold as them, if not more bold.
Yeah.
We sure do. But this is a litigation tracker for cases filed against the 47th administration.
Good. Oh, thank you. That's Dr. Jerome
Yes,
Reed.
that
Thank
sure
you,
is.
Dr. Reed.
Thank you. I
And an attorney. Yes.
when I saw that, I said, "Oh, we need to put that information and make sure people see that."
Thank you.
This is what I was going to read. I was reading, this was from the Economic Policy Institute. They put something out talking about the Trump administration sent home more than 1,300 Department of Education employees in the latest attack on federal workers. Here's why a strong Department of Education matters. The Department of Education provides critically important services for public education, including funding for public K through 12 schools, funding for low-income children through Title I funds, funding for special education through IDEA programs. All of this is now at risk as EPI, so they were just saying public education is how the United States became the richest country the world has ever seen, and its future depends on maintaining and strengthening this system, not tearing it down.
That is so true. I was on a panel a little earlier today, and we were talking about the state of the politics around us.
Mhm.
And you and I have talked about this a lot. When we look at this moment, and we've been tracking it for some time, but we are in that they're leading us to that era in time called the redemption period. It was the period after Reconstruction. It was the period where people were coming to get their stuff back from us after we had made so many gains as a people, as Black people. And so that is definitely where we are, and making sure that we don't know our history, making sure that really honestly, if some had their way, we would be going straight to the fields, going straight to, to some sort of free labor.
Mhm.
and teaching our kids how to work. And so we want to make sure that we keep a strong education system. We know we have a long ways to go, but Michigan had been, and I've talked about this a lot, we were underfunding, greatly underfunding our education system, and then taking dollars away. I could talk to Flint, but you all know more than I do about state takeovers of our education system as well as the city government, and what that has left us with. And so we're just rebuilding on top of some other catastrophic events that have happened, including a pandemic. And so we're just getting to the place where we have some good people in, at least here in Michigan, to
Okay.
be able we had been to be putting to do the proper uh, things that would get our children where we needed to get them. Look at the classroom sizes. I was just looking at some numbers and I need to check those numbers. But when we look at classroom sizes, our children are in exploded, just overloaded classrooms. When we talk about teachers and teachers being able to be paid, Flint just went through this, and they can go to a neighboring district and make more.
Right.
And then they're dealing with issues that other districts don't have to deal with, because when you're dealing with children with high poverty rates,
You're
which
dealing. Well,
go
I mean, you know what? It made me think of the same. We say the same thing when we talk about fire and police, because there's so much more stress here,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they can go someplace else with much less stress, with much more, resources and financial. I mean, both
Mhm.
kind, resources,
Yeah.
access to different things that, we were fighting to get some playgrounds. So some of those things that other communities just have and take for
Right.
granted, and then the financial support. So
Mhm.
it reminds me of that same fight.
Right. And the toll that they take,
Mhm.
because they internalize, they're close to their students or to who the people are that they serve. Also, the people who are making these bad decisions are in Lansing or Washington, DC, or somewhere that's away. So the people who are hearing it and being blamed are the people who are most proximal to the people, but farthest away from the decisions that are being made. So having said that, we are putting a policy agenda together, whether it was the cursive writing, whether
Mhm.
it's addressing music, whether it's taking on special education, whether it's addressing the lack of transparency and the billions of dollars that go out to for-profit charter management companies, whether it's been advocating for equitable dollars, meaning that yes, our school, all of our kids need to have adequate resources, but we also need equitable resources so that the children who are in most need can uh, be funded, and those schools can be funded with school nurses, mental health professionals, counselors. We can go on and on. But we were finally stating that case. And so now we have these blows that are coming at us fast and furious, that we have to fight. And our children, unfortunately, as resilient as they are, as the educator said before, they need the supports that only money can buy.
And I mean, and I appreciate, I mean, I'm glad we always say we are strong, resilient people, but good
Mhm.
grief, you just keep giving us, not you, but they keep just giving us
Mhm.
blow after blow. They're trying to
Uh-huh.
wear that resiliency
Yes.
off of us. I saw a question though, and I wanted to read it. It was from Michelle, and she was asking something about what about the money, about the lottery funds?
We get that question a lot. I should
Mhm.
Google it, but there's a small percentage of our dollars that come from the lottery funds. I don't have that exact answer, but we get our dollars from property tax. We get it from I'm sorry, we get it from sales tax. We get it from um, the lottery. There's like a list of places that we get resources for our education, and yes, lottery is a small sliver of that. I'll bring that information back, or I'll give it to Dr. Weaver to get. But that's a question that we get a lot. So we should make sure the money is
They
allocated.
touted it so much, when it
Right.
came out. I have a question for you though. When you were talking about some of the things in schools that we would like to see there again, do the trades ever come up? Because we had the trades in school, and that was
Mhm.
a pathway to economic opportunity and mobility. Those
Absolutely.
are great jobs.
Yes. So we have under the Dr. Rice,
Mhm.
our state superintendent of public instruction, was just, I mean, for the last few years, has been advocating for more dollars to go to CTE or career tech programming. And the governor has just taken that on as a priority, the legislature, and this is a bipartisan issue. So we are getting more uh, traction, and we look to see more resources. We see that from both sides of the aisle, that they are picking up on that, and they know that it is a need. And we have some really good CTE programs. We just on Tuesday we had two. One was from Shiawassee County, and I'm forgetting where the other one was. And they were talking about, even with their millage dollars, they're starting to bust out of the seams, and we're seeing that. And we're seeing that they still need more resources. And I've had the opportunity to visit some and seeing culinary programming, auto mechanics. It was a young lady who was in the auto mechanics program. The health field,
Mm.
I've seen where some students have been able to leave high school and be able to have credits in college. And this is CTE is something that I had to warm up to, because when I was growing up, career tech, the trades, when you would see students maybe in wood shop or something, parents were thinking, well, it was true. Sometimes their children were being tracked and sent into uh, uh, not getting put on a path to go get further education. But we have come such a long way in that program, in our CTE programming, and we do need more resources there. So yes, you are right. There is a need.
Yeah, and when I think, growing up in Flint, in a GM town, Buick City, I remember it being viewed that way, and then all of a sudden they realized, oh, we're tracking them into great jobs. We got
Yes.
to stop that.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
And it has taken work. It does require accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm telling you, I listen to people. I listen to the business community. The business community would take some of our children and not really be concerned with shaping them to be the best them they can be. I shouldn't say all in the business, because there
There,
is definitely more good than bad, but we have come a long way. And yes, the students are using it to even go on to college. And if they decide to go to become a cosmetologist, they have that opportunity to do that, become business owners. But there is a lot there, and we are fighting for and are seeing traction and getting more resources for career tech.
yeah, I mean, and I guess that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And I guess I'm a little stuck on it because, you know, uh, I just remember when General Motors had over 80,000 people that
Yeah,
worked for them. I
right,
remember people, they could leave high school. They had these wonderful jobs. They could get a home. They could get a
right,
car. They could get a mortgage. They could get a loan. They had access to
right,
quality health care. And,
right,
and that's what it affords you. And I
right.
and I just saw them slowly take us out of those roles. I mean, think about it. Think, what do you call those people that go with the golfers, the caddies?
Yeah, uh-huh.
They used to
Yes.
be black. I mean, and those were great jobs. And they said, wait a minute. We got to get them out of there too. And so, I have that suspicious mind.
Well, we look at the numbers every second Tuesday, and you've been there. We get updates. The Tuesday that you were there, we were getting it was an annual, so we were getting a global update on all of our 8 goals. But career tech is one of our goals. But we get the update, we look at it, we break it down by economic status, we break it down by gender, we break it down by race. Our Black children were far less likely to be enrolled in CTE programming. But with this, us being out there talking about it, them being able to show parents that this is good for children, this does not preclude them from going to, on to however they want to move forward. If they want to go into their career right away, or if they want to go on to college, they can do both. And
Right. And that's what we want. We want those. We want options. And and that's what needs to be there. And those options are for what do you call the other education? Not CTE. Because I think about the different areas, because cutting out music and arts, that's a problem to me, because that's a career path. And that's one that we tend to not be guided into many times.
Right.
And so we should have all those options.
One of the things that I saw the department do, and the department under Dr. Rice sent out letters to students, and it gave them like a list, almost like a catalog of different opportunities: AP programming, IP programming, early college, dual enrollment, CTE. So it laid out different ways that students could get the best out of their education that they can. And parents have really appreciated that. We've also seen AP programming and Black children enrolling in AP programming that prepares them for college as well. So that has been something that we're seeing good benefit out of as well.
And a lot of people are talking about that programming, and when they were in school, and just the different things that were available to them. I see B. Marie said, any updates on Michigan charter schools being more transparent on donors, investors, etc.?
Well, I think I said this the last time. So we failed, and let me say, I'm not going to say we. The trifecta was Democratic trifecta failed in the lame duck session. So the Senate put forward very strong transparency language and bill package. The House put forward a package that got us a little bit farther, but nowhere near where we need to be with transparency. And we did pass legislation, but it was the legislation from the House side, not the strong language from the Senate side. They never got to that point where the House was able to take up the Senate's bill package. So long story short, we have some legislation. Michigan is still going to be one of the highest number of charters, highest percentage of charters that are led by for-profit EMOs. Those EMOs can take dollars in what we call sweeps contracts. We've FOIA'd as the Board of Education, and we were able to see that we do not get information that tells us where those dollars go. You're probably asking because there's even real estate maneuvering that goes on that we are greatly concerned about as well. But we did not have the full political will of that full legislature to be able to move that legislation forward in a way that we can have real transparency, a little but not full transparency that we need.
Wow. Well, I have another question, and this is you're gonna say, now why'd you ask me this one? But one of the things we know is the governor, and I don't mean who the governor is, but the role of governor has had say so in what goes on around education and with the state board of education. There's going to be an election coming up.
Mhm.
What do you need in a governor?
We need a governor who prioritizes education,
Mm-hmm.
who prioritizes our children in education. Education is billions of dollars. There are lots of people who want to get their hands in. We have to make sure that our education is led by those people who know and understand education. My background is public health. I talk to educators. I talk to friends who are educators. I talk to people within the department, um, and allow them to lead. I think of my job as being someone who helps to try to move the politics out of the way so educators can educate, take barriers away. We have to have leaders that are able to do that. I was speaking to a mayor from a big city, and he said, Pam, he was like, in my role, he said, I had to think about the business, I had to think about the kids, I had to think about, all of these things. Um, within education, you have to think about the children only. So when you're looking for a governor, definitely making sure that it's someone who understands that our children are not little workers. They're not just talents waiting to go work for business. It is good when we do prepare them to do that, but we want them to be the best them that they want to be. We have to make sure that it's someone who lets educators' voices be heard, and not just beholden to a business and corporate model, because they're totally different things. People want to run schools like corporations
Right.
are ran, and it never works. We see that over and over again.
And I'm asking because one of the things we've been talking about is how we need to be educating people all of the time. This is a continuous process. It doesn't just stop. And we know that you see people saying, I'm going to be running for this, I'm going to be running for that. And so what we need to have our ears open, because education is a huge concern for
Mhm.
us. And so when we're listening to them, that's why I was saying, what are the things we need to be listening for or question, asking, about. So that's
Right.
why I was asking that.
You'll hear a lot of people talk about dollars that have poured into schools, especially over these last few years with COVID, because we had that large infusion of Recovery Act dollars that came in. Number one, they were one-time dollars. They were not recurring dollars. Making sure that you have people who understand that the well-being of the child, the whole child, the
Right.
family, the way that if a child is fed, if a child has all of those helps professions, which the psychologist, because everyone does not understand that those are needs. When we talk about funding, we talk about equitable funding. There are some people who think that Flint should get the same amount of money or that Bloomfield should get the same amount of money that Flint should get, but there should be graduated or tiered supports when you have more special education children with more special needs, when you have economically disadvantaged children, you have to
Get greater
compensate.
needs.
We have greater needs. So
Right.
listening to that, and then again, making sure that our children are not viewed as little workers,
Mhm.
but they're viewed as people who we want to be able to be civically minded, be able to participate in democracy, be able to think, be able to be critical thinkers. And going back, looking at the definition that the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King gave us, that you want people who are knowledgeable, but also can think, and that you can sense that from someone who's thinking in that way.
Mhm. Well, we know critical thinking is important.
Mhm.
We do know that. So, and that's a good point. But yeah, there's a lot. And I know we've had this conversation, but let people know again, because I don't think enough of us tune in to State Board of Education meetings. I mean, I hadn't been doing that. That was something recent for me. When are those meetings? Because people can come,
Yes.
they can Zoom in. I mean, those
Right.
are open meetings.
And if you go to I think it should be mde.gov, but Michigan Department of Education.gov, something like that should pop it up. And then you can go and you can look for State Board of Education under that banner. And we meet every second Tuesday. We meet all day. We're there from like 9 till 4-ish. And then at 1 p.m., it's typically always at 1 p.m., public comment. And give your comments. And I suggest that people, I heard the first segment, talk to your school boards. We are a local control state. Your local school boards have a lot of power, and making sure that they know that in this time, making sure that they don't give up some of their powers that they have. They have a lot of powers that even Donald Trump can't take away as the president.
Well, that's good to hear again, because it's easy to just feel defeated sometimes.
Yes.
And I don't know if you were on when we were talking at the beginning, but we were, one of the things I was saying is how we always talk about, politics being local, and pay attention to your local and state elections, because that impacts your day-to-day living. But this administration out of DC has really impacted our day-to-day living in a way that other administrations have not. Because they hold the purse strings. Before, we get the money and we did with it. Well, but if we're not even going to give it to you, we're just going to take it. We're going to
Right. And they will if they get away with it.
Right.
And if you don't fight back, that's I appreciate Dr. Rice, and I can say the AG, it has been swift and responsive, and they have put out information to the field to tell them, operate within your legal bounds, but this is how the Constitution operates. This is how the federal Constitution, as well as our state Constitution, works. You can't just say something is illegal and there is no law on the books. You can't say you're going to come and arrest teachers and there is no law on the books to do that.
They do that in our Flint City Council all the time. What are you talking about? It happens on the local level. I mean, I said it's like a little fiefdom, trumpdom, fiefdom.
This is a time where we realize, I think about Florida when we had the hanging chads.
Yeah.
You remember that? And it was like we knew people's names in positions that we never would have known. Oh, that's what they do? And the people were probably thinking like, I didn't want all this attention. But this is one of these times where you should know what everyone's role is, and everyone should be held accountable to play it. And if we do that, it will help us. It will save us now, because if we don't do it, I don't know where we will end up. So it will save us and save our democracy. And we need to unpack what saving our democracy. So that means our freedoms. It will help us to remain free, to be able to speak, talk, eat when we want to eat.
Right.
Be able to eat, period.
Right.
But we have to know our roles, and we have to hold those people, each of us, accountable to those roles that we play in this day and age. And if we do it here, we can do it anywhere in any situation.
And I think that, and that's why I think these kinds of conversations are so important, because I do believe that we have a responsibility, if we have knowledge, to share it or to bring those that have that expertise and that knowledge to the community, because we should be doing this all of the time.
And I have to say thank you, because those our adversaries, man, do they know how to encamp around us? Think about it. One of the first things that they've done is removed our mechanism for being able to communicate in this way. Think about some of the stations that are gone, X,
People that are gone.
all of the above.
Right.
Oh, yeah. All of the above. Voices.
That's right.
Mechanisms to get those voices out.
Shut them down.
And thank you for staying the course and still looking good while you're doing it.
Look, that's one thing we do. We don't let them see us sweat.
I don't know. I'm sitting here looking at anyway.
We don't see
I'm on my way to the beauty salon. Oh, that's cute. Now that's a good picture.
Where's that?
That's us.
No, I said, I know who. I said, where?
Well, I won't give. I should remember the date by maybe like May 23rd. I should remember the date.
Do you know where we were?
I do. We were at the bookstore when I was announcing.
What's that behind us? That's what's throwing me. Put that back up, Landon. What's that behind us?
It's a picture. Oh, what's the name of the bookstore?
We were at okay, I see what it is, because
yes.
We were at Comma. Okay, got it. Okay. Ooh. I didn't know what that was at first, but that's that painting.
Yes, it is.
That's what that is.
Well, there's Lynette. I see Lynette's face off to the side too. So
that sure is. Oh, okay. That's what. Oh, he showed me the full picture. Now that he's got the full picture up now.
Yes. So, but I do thank you and I appreciate you, and I'm happy that our state superintendent of public instruction
it was very good to have him. It was really good to have him on here.
We have to lift our leaders up, because I'm telling you, sometimes I go on the internet and I'm kind of nervous for us, and you've experienced this. So we have to be safe. We have to know that there are those who are very angry. I mean, just really angry and bitter, and they say some very vile things that concern me.
Violent.
Yes.
Yeah. So we do have
Exactly.
to be careful. We have to be careful, but we don't stop. And so
We
I want
don't
to
stop.
thank you for that, because you haven't stopped us, like I was telling the superintendent, speaking up and showing up and fighting
Yes.
back. And we appreciate that. We appreciate you for doing that. And
it has been a good feeling, I will tell you, and I know we've got to wrap up, but to be able to call, sometimes he's calling on the phone. I'm like, this is going to be the time where he's like, we got to pull back. But no, it's been okay.
He's like,
this
we're going in
is what we're going to do. Yeah, right. I checked into this tool, and let's keep it moving. And when it seems like, because there really are times when our friends
right.
and allies do not show up for us. And so I have been blessed to see our state superintendent and my board members be there for our children on days as a Black woman when I've felt DEI'd and seeing women be DEI'd. If there is such a thing, if they're going to take language, we can do it too.
We sure can.
And it gets heavy, but to have allies that show up, it means a lot. Yeah. And that's one. And they will try to, both sides of the aisle will try to weaken that.
They do all the time, but what is it? Still I rise. And that's what we will continue to do. So
we definitely will.
Any parting words before we go? I mean, I think what you said was nailed it. But I want to remind people, this is March. It's not only is it Women's Month, it's Reading Month.
It is. And Music Month.
And Music Month. So,
Music Education Month.
okay. And so I just want people to remember that and do something. Do
Yes.
something.
And you pushed us to move on the cursive writing. So
I'm
we
glad.
want to have a update for you. But as a psychologist, you were thinking of the cognitive connection.
And I think about that, and I also thought about, I mean, when you're talking about how do you read, I remember finding some letters, because people used to write letters.
Mhm.
I found some letters my dad had written to my mother. They had their little on.
Mm.
And you want your kids to be able to read that. I mean, my kids can, because they have. But
Yes.
when I think about, my
Yes.
granddaughter, I want her to be able to read that. I don't want to say, what is that? Like it's a foreign language.
Well, we heard you loud and clear, so we're moving it forward. And
Thank
and I know, and you're a cello player. We're trying to get our children to have it, be able to engage in activities that keep them
Right.
wanting to come to school, keep them having books
Exactly.
that make them want to delve in and get lost in a book.
Right.
So we're pushing forward.
And helping them to find their passion, whatever it is. I want
Absolutely.
that opportunity there for
Yep.
them.
Even
So
if it's the trades, yes.
that's right. We want it all. I want it all. But anyway, I want to say thank you for coming on. People were waiting for this conversation. We told you all we would have a part 2. I hope things slow down. I hope things slow down and we can get, the next update.
Will we even know what to do if things?
I don't know.
I mean, in a good, we want them to
Right.
slow
Right.
the bad to slow down. Yes.
Exactly. Because all these little fires that just keep happening, well, big fires, really,
Mhm.
we need those things to stop. So we're going to stay tuned and pay attention to what happens with this lawsuit. I know you will let us know if there's some other things we need to be abreast of. So thank you for that. You all stay tuned, because we're going to be doing Clutching Our Pearls in just a little bit. But I want to say, I'm going to go put some on. You see what I have on, but we're going to be doing that next. But I want to say thank you again, Dr. Pamela Pugh. She is the president of the State Board of Education, for coming on and staying in the fight and speaking up and for our kids and for our teachers, for our people that are in education, that are helping our kids become the best they can be, because that's what they do.
We have moms and dads losing their jobs.
Right.
We have parents of young children who are losing their jobs, whether it's at the U.S. Department of Education or people just being able to at random call something diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our children are harmed in that way as well.
Okay. Well, we know you will stay in the fight, and we appreciate
We
it.
will.
And until next time, I'll see you again. And thank you all for tuning in to Real Talk with Karen Weaver. Thanks, Pam, for coming on. We appreciate you.
Thanks again.
Okay. See you guys. Bye.